Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
And welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and today we're going to cover a wide variety of topics. My good friend Elad Hakim will join me in a few moments to talk about the unconstitutionality of Biden's executive order on abortion and also his reaction as an attorney to the Hunter Biden scandal, all of this stuff that keeps coming out from his iCloud account. But first, I wanted to draw your attention to a very important piece in The Federalist that came out yesterday from my good friend Molly Hemingway. The title is Yes, Biden is hiding his plan to rig the 2022 midterm elections. I mean, guys, is this any shock that the Biden administration is looking to cheat? Really, it's not. And so this is reporting out of Molly Hemingway. And she says that the White House is refusing to share details about its coordinated efforts to engage in a federal takeover of election administration. And I really want you all to go and read this piece from Molly Hemingway. If you follow her on Twitter, on social media, or just go to The Federalist and read this piece, it outlines in specific detail what the Biden administration has done since taking office in 2021 and what they are hiding from the American people in their plans for the 2022 midterms. And so I'm not going to go through the entire article here today, but basically we know even from HR 4 and S1, those were the Democrats' congressional efforts after the 2020 election to try to federalize the administration of the elections. Thankfully, we know that those efforts failed in Congress, but that doesn't mean that the Democrats are done yet. And so what we saw in 2020 with the administration and the breakdown of following election law, like the Wisconsin Supreme Court held, and what they observed and what they rightly found, that the administration from, in that instance, the Wisconsin Election Commission, which had allowed for all of these over 500 drop boxes to be put around the states, that those were illegal according to state law. And so anything that is a federal takeover of elections, trying on purpose and intentionally to take away the province and the authority of the state legislatures to create and establish the law surrounding elections and give that instead to any federal branch, whether it is Congress in the legislative or the presidential administration in the executive, that is by definition unconstitutional. The Constitution requires that it is the state legislatures that create the law and gives Congress a very, very limited role simply to set the time, place, and manner for the national federal elections only so that we can have a consistent election day. But that is a very nominal type of participation by Congress, but the actual mode and the administration of the elections in each state is according to the state legislature. So we have to be on top of these issues. And I'm very proud of my friend Molly Hemingway for not backing down. She is willing to report truth and fact and shine a light on these issues so that hopefully the GOP, and yes, I'm looking at you, Ronna McDaniel, Justin Reamer, who's still the chief counsel of the RNC. What are you guys doing ahead of the 2022 election to try to foreclose any of these problems and these issues that the Biden administration is going to try to implement before November? Because if you just sit on your hands like you did in 2020 and wait to try to correct it after the fact, we're just going to see a repeat. And so I know so many people are frustrated about this issue, but the good news is that election integrity is the most important issue across America. And the best thing that you can do right now is to call the national GOP to account and ask them relentlessly, what are they doing? How are they challenging this? And how are they making sure that the state legislatures are going to actually be the administrators of the election? And also call your own state representatives. Make sure that they understand and they are willing to hold accountable the executive branch. And remember, you have to get out and vote anyway. To simply decline to participate until, 2020 is fixed or all of these other things, or just, I don't think that the administration of the election is going to happen in any other, good and legal, lawful way, then you are simply participating in handing the Democrats a win. And they don't even have to do any of the work. We're not even preserving the challenges. So get out and vote, and make sure that you're also supporting the proper administration of local elections, of volunteers as an election official, or you can go and volunteer as a poll watcher. There are so many different things that you can do to participate. And also definitely go and read this article by Molly Hemingway in the Federalist. So I'll be right back with my friend Elad Hakim, and we're going to jump into the unconstitutionality of Biden's executive order on abortion, so many other things. I mean, this is just the Democrats who don't care anymore about the rule of law. They're trying intentionally to dismantle our constitutional republic, but we will not let them, because we're going to continue to call them out and be relentlessly truthful. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. And another controversial story that has made headlines last week and this week is Joe Biden's unconstitutional executive order on abortion. So here to break this down is Elad Hakim, who is an attorney and prolific writer in various news outlets. So Elad, thank you so much for joining me. I've been wanting to have you on for a while, and this is such a perfect topic. So you wrote a great piece in the New American talking about how voters are not even buying Joe Biden's attempts to reshape the abortion argument in America.
Yeah, first, thanks for having me on. And since the Dobbs decision came out, you should start and preface it by saying it's unbelievable how many people misconstrued or even misinterpreted the actual holding of the decision, which, as you know, didn't abolish abortion, just kicked it back to the states, which is where it should have been to begin with. But without any sort of second thought, Biden went ahead and issued this executive order in an effort really to kind of paint the picture as the midterms start approaching that, hey, the Republicans and the conservative-led Supreme Court are anti-woman, anti-abortion, anti-women's rights. And based on recent polling that's coming out, it's showing that it's not having the effect that Biden really, wants it to have. And I think one of the reasons that's happening is because Democrats who are even in favor of abortion are not in favor of abortion to the extent that these far left liberals in Congress are promoting and pushing. They're against, infanticide. They're against abortion on demand and abortion at any time during a pregnancy and even after in some states. So it's not having the effect. People have more pressing concerns. They're concerned about the economy. They're concerned about gas prices. They're concerned about feeding, their family and putting food on the table. And abortion and even the gun issue is kind of low on the totem pole. And it's a problem for Biden and the Democrats.
Yeah, and we saw how bizarre and so leftist progressive, even in the hearings this week, over today and the last couple of days in the Senate Judiciary Committee, with this Democrat invited guest who's this professor that made the argument that, birthing people are somehow the appropriate term. And she had this really amazing exchange with Senator Hawley that went viral, where she actually accused him of denying that trans people exist because he said that only women can have babies. I mean, if this is the playing field on the topic of abortion that the Democrats want, they're not even in the same universe of logic.
Correct. I agree with you. And it's, it's their version of the truth versus what, science and reality actually shows. And look, this isn't the first time we've heard such remarks made against conservatives or Republicans. If you disagree, for example, with transgenders who want to participate against biological women in sports, then you're also transphobic. So it's not the first time, it's not the last time, but it is a little frightening that future lawyers of America are learning this in our law schools. I hope that's not the case. I hope it's more the exception than the rule. But yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, and going back to just the text of Biden's executive order, if you actually read this, it struck me on two different aspects. One is that this seems to just be an optics-driven executive order to say that he stands firmly with abortion on demand and the most extreme leftist position possible, which is, of course, the Democrats are no longer even trying to pretend that it's about abortion being safe, legal, and rare. They want medical interventions and state-funded abortion on demand for absolutely any reason. And they want that not just up until the moment of birth, but even days or who knows how long after. And so this type of infanticide is really their party position. But then the second thing that really struck me as well is that he delegates kind of this authority to, or says, and seems to try to acknowledge some sort of authority in Health and Human Services, which really has absolutely no authority to do anything on a federal level in light of the Dobbs case. And so it seems to me that his executive order is trying on purpose to ignore the binding opinion and the institution of the judiciary and completely ignore and undermine the legitimacy of that institution. And it's blatantly unconstitutional. What are your thoughts on the overall text of the executive order itself?
Okay, well, a few points. One, as you know, an executive order isn't law. An executive order, in order to issue the executive order and to have it actually mean something, it has to be based on some sort of power from the Constitution or elsewhere that the president has. So there's a few thoughts on this executive order. One, yes, I do think it's mostly kind of done to appease those anti-Dobbs people and those who are anti-abortion. because it really doesn't say much of anything. What it does, though, and I'd love to hear your thoughts also. I think it may run contrary, or it have problems with the Hyde Amendment. There's a limit as to when the federal government, can use funds to on the issue of abortion. And there are a few exceptions. I think when the mother's health is at risk, but you can't use federal funds. So what's interesting here in the executive order, Biden is saying that they're going to provide funds, for example, for medications that help with abortion, and that does, questionably run afoul of Dobbs, because Dobbs said no, abortion is an issue of this, state rights, state issue in the state legislatures. So does that kind of run contrary to Dobbs if the federal government is then basically contributing to abortion, not only in violation potentially of Dobbs, but of the Hyde Amendment? So that's one issue. The other issue is, there's also an issue of preemption. I'm not sure how state laws, for example, if you go into a state and that state says, we're banning abortion altogether, and then you have this executive order, and there's an attempt, for example, to provide medications for abortion, you're going to have a federal rule versus a state law, and there's going to be an issue of preemption. Which one takes precedence over the other? And I don't know the answer to that, because I don't think it's really, Dobbs is so new that it hasn't been litigated. So it's, and then finally, to your more general point, your more broad point, I'm not sure that Biden really cares what the Supreme Court says. We saw that with the eviction moratorium, where he tried to renew it, and the Supreme Court clearly spoke about it, and they shot down his effort to kind of renew it. So he is very clearly willing to kind of teeter or overlook the Supreme Court precedent. And now you see what's happening. You have some on the far left saying we don't need the Supreme Court, which is ridiculous. And we should pack the Supreme Court, which is also absurd, because it's just going to result in the party in power consistently adding new justices. So round and round we go. But the executive order, I assume that if he tries to implement some sort of provision in it, it's going to be challenged. And if power actually changes hands come November, it's going to be discarded in its entirety. So I don't think we'll see much of it being of much significance anytime soon.
Yeah, and I completely agree with all of your points. And the overarching problem here is that Biden is acting like a petty tyrant, and he thinks that the executive just has power to make these unilateral declarations that run afoul, not only, as you pointed out, the Hyde Amendment and congressional federal law, but then also the judiciary and this Dobbs opinion. And so for Biden being willing to just openly flout those and to say that he is acting with unilateral authority just to put forth his own party policies, when the executive branch has no constitutional authority to do that, he's showing that he's willfully ignoring his oath of office. He's willfully ignoring the fact that we are a nation of rules, not a nation of rulers. And as you rightly pointed out, Elad, this is exactly what he's done in several other instances, which is why I and others have called for Joe Biden's impeachment, to say that he is not willing to hold himself to the limited powers of the executive office. I mean, if he wants to go and advocate for abortion laws, then go be on a state legislature. Go, if he wants to interpret them, go be on the federal judiciary somewhere, or a state level judge. I mean, this is why we have a separation of powers in the United States, so that it is not just one man who acts as a dictator for all of America. And I think this is what's so frustrating to a lot of Americans who are watching this abortion debate continue to unfold, because pre-Dobbs and since 1973, we've had all of the Democrats, from Elizabeth Warren, to Dianne Feinstein, to Joe Biden himself, to everybody else, saying this is super precedent. You can't argue with the Supreme Court's opinion. They have a monopoly on this. And then as soon as the Supreme Court says, no, actually, we don't. We're returning this constitutionally back to the states and the people's elected representatives. Then all of a sudden, we can't really trust the Supreme Court. We need to pack the Supreme Court. So this shows that the Democrats aren't principled, and we know that they're not, but they are openly evidencing that they're not principled. They just have their preferred party outcomes. So what do you think is going to happen in terms of potential legislation on the federal level that the Democrats are going to try to ram through through, like they tried to do with the election integrity issues and, HR 4 and S1 with trying to federalize elections. Well, now they're going to try to federalize the abortion issue. And that runs contrary to the U.S. Constitution and to the Dobbs opinion.
Yeah, and it's not going to go anywhere. You thought voting was a tough issue. The Republicans, they're pretty. I would say the Republicans are pretty together on the issue of abortion, and they're not going to agree. At least they better not. They better not agree to what Democrats are proposing, which, like you said before, was infanticide and basically abortion on demand and at any point. I think states like Colorado recently passed a law allowing for abortion up. I don't even think they actually limited it. California proposed, I don't know if it actually passed, but proposed allowing abortions up to, I think, a week after birth. Democrats have a problem because many Democrat voters don't agree with the severity and just the vile nature of what they're proposing. So, they can either try to propose, they could either try to pass something which is just not going to get support and which is going to cost them come election time, or they can come back to the table and try to come with something that will be amenable to everybody. So they've got a problem. I mean, it's one of many problems that they have, but that is a problem for them.
Yeah. And as you wisely pointed out in your piece in the New American, this isn't polling well for Biden anyway. And everyone is focused on, inflation now as of today is at 9.1%. We have so many other problems, gas prices, baby formula that's disappearing, not able to even be, found by these young mothers. I mean, so many other immediate concerns that really Americans and even traditionally Democrat voters are looking at the Biden administration and the extreme progressive left and saying, no, this is not the America we know and love. And so in the last few minutes that I have with you, Elad, I also wanted to ask you, speaking of, all of the crazy that's coming out in the news and more important pressing issues, from a legal perspective, all of this stuff that the 4chan group has been able to push out from Hunter Biden's iCloud. I mean, this is just, it continues to be shocking videos. And it's like every time that he is remotely around, anything dirty, disgusting, and potentially criminal. I mean, hookers and crack, cocaine. I mean, all of this stuff, there's a video camera and he's so excited to film it. And so that's one issue. But then second, the fact that Hunter Biden and his family are calling Joe Biden pedo Peter. I mean, that just seems really disgusting. And like, we need to have a conversation here in America about all of these issues. What is your take on the potential criminality and legal issues that may face the Biden administration and the Biden family in particular with these new revelations?
Well, if we were in a perfect world, which we're not, and if the legal system, which was perfect, which it isn't, I would say that the odds are better, that at least there would be an investigation. But as you know, and as I know, both as attorneys and just people who are able to be objective, I'm not sure anything's going to happen. And I'm not speaking for Hunter Biden. I think Hunter Biden, allegedly, there's some sort of investigation. It seems that some people sat on the laptop for quite some time. So I think that Hunter Biden, there's a chance that criminal prosecution will follow. But Joe Biden, I don't see anything happening. I just, based on what we've seen in the past, Jenna, whether we're talking about Durham's investigation, whether we're talking about election integrity that like you were very involved in, whatever it is, it saddens me a little bit when I think about what's happening in the legal profession and how sadly it has become so politicized. And I think that if that stops, and if we just if we're able to get people who can view it objectively and actually practice the law and do the law, handle cases the way they should be, with an objective lens, as opposed to, I refuse to prosecute this person because he's a Biden, or I refuse to do this. If we're just able to look at it more objectively, I think it would be, do wonders. But do I see that happening? I don't see that happening anytime soon. Although I should say I am happy that the Supreme Court has followed the Constitution. And I tell people who are upset with Dobbs and with the New York rifle case, said, listen, you're never going to be happy with the Supreme Court's opinions, all of them. I mean, some of us were not happy with the decision not to take on the election case in 2020. Some of us were unhappy with the Remain in Mexico decision. But you have to follow and abide by the rule of law. If we don't, we're going to be there's going to be no holds barred here. It's going to be a disaster in America.
Yeah, and it'll be the complete dismantling of America if we are no longer a nation of rules and under the rule of law. And this is why, as you pointed out, this is where law enforcement needs to act objectively and go where the facts lead instead of where the political preferred outcome leads. And that's what we're seeing in so many of these actors, like the Department of Justice, like these very politicized investigations, one way or another. If your last name is Trump or you're affiliated with anyone Trump, then of course you are politically persecuted. And if your last name is Biden or anyone associated with Biden, then you are just ignored and they turn the other way. And that is the dismantling of the law enforcement system. And this is why so many people in America are very frustrated with the deep state. They're frustrated that there is no accountability for the Department of Justice or for any of these state and local leaders. But we are seeing a few glimmers of hope, like the DA that was recalled out of San Francisco. That is huge. And those types of steps that we as Americans can take to hold our elected leaders responsible, so that then when, especially these people in the executive, that can then appoint or hire other people who will actually abide by the rule of law and act conservatively, meaning conserving the rule of law, not on a partisan agenda, then we can slowly, hopefully, roll the ball back a little bit and to come back from this crazy politicized notion that somehow justice equals social justice, which is, of course, the complete perversion of the rule of law. And it's acting, as you mentioned, on partisan politics instead of an objective system. So, Elad, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people find you and read your work?
You can find me first on Twitter at ThoughtfulGOP, and then look me up. I write for the New American, and just look me up, Elad Hakim, with any legal questions or to see my work.
Yeah, and then you're also on Facebook as well. I follow you both places. So really appreciate your legal insights and your perspectives, and hope to have you on again soon. Thanks.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Jenna.
I also want to talk about another great American who is the sponsor of this podcast. And that, of course, is my good friend, Mike Lindell. He has been canceled out of so many box stores for simply standing up for his own political opinion. And disagree or not, or support him or not, it is a fundamental right of every American to be able to voice their opinion, and that absolutely includes politics. That absolutely includes issues that are central to our culture. That includes faith. Mike is such a very sincere Christian, and I am proud to consider him a friend, and he is, of course, a friend of this show. So right now, there is a special on MyPillow.com. Click on the new radio listener specials. Get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including a great towel set, which is a 6-piece set. It includes 2 bath, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths, made in the USA, regularly $109.99, now just $39.99, but you have to use the promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. That tells Mike that you listen to this show, you're happy that he is a sponsor of this show, and you will get great discounts, but use the promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, either at mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna.